There we go. Yes, I think we're all going. Yes, good. Okay, so tonight I was going to suggest that we talk about how you can use dreams to help develop your own psychic awareness. So I'll give you a few thoughts about how we can remember our dreams. A few thoughts about how we can recognize perhaps dreams that predict the future, for example, or dreams that are about the next world. I'll talk also a little bit about dream incubation, which is how we can encourage our unconscious mind to give us answers to questions, so we can start to use our own brain like an oracle. And we might not get through all this. Talk a little bit possibly about mutual dreams, that is dreams where we meet each other in a dream and you meet someone else in a dream, and whether they're what they are about. That's probably too much to cover, but these are the sort of ideas. And also possibly could even consider some of the ideas about lucid dreams, about the idea of when you wake up in a dream and can start to get a little bit of control of your dream. So those are... Isabella coming in, admit, yep. Yep, just letting people in. So, yep, I think everybody's clicking on the buttons to accept people. Oh, good. Isabella. Hi, Isabella. I know Isabella because I've given Isabella readings and her whole family lots and lots of times. So just saying, we're talking about the development using dreams as part of our psychic type of development. So remembering dreams, dream incubation, mutual dreams, lucid dreams, and things like that. So first of all, are most of you, I suppose, we all dream. Anybody don't think they dream?
I'm awake in my dream every night, sir.
Hi, Isabella.
Hi.
So, Jonathan, you wake up a lot in your dreams. You get those lucid type of dreams. Yeah. Do all of you have trouble recalling dreams? I mean, most people do, generally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not all the time. Sometimes I can remember vivid details, and it just keeps developing through the hours of the day. I remember more and more and more, which I think is unusual.
You remember it through the day. Yeah, that is unusual, actually. Yeah, yeah. I suppose it must mean that you're quite well in tune with your unconscious and subconscious mind, you know, because when we're like that, we're obviously we're obviously much more in touch with ourselves in many respects. It does happen to me as well, actually, and I expect most of us actually, perhaps it's unusual. But I think people that are psychically aware are very much in touch with your unconscious mind and what's going on below the surface. You know, what? Because that's where our intuition comes from, doesn't it? Really, the whole idea of connecting to other people doesn't come through rational mind, does it? Yeah, if I'm given a reading for somebody, I'm not going to sit there and use my rational mind to answer questions, you know, because that just gets in the way all the time when you do clairvoyance. In fact, it's the biggest enemy of clairvoyance, strangely enough, is rationality. You know, I mean, but if you think logically all the time, you think mathematically, you think in structured ways, that always gets in the way. We have to think with the other side of the brain. You know, we have to think with that side of the brain that is holistic, sees everything at once, is almost pretty much irrational too, you know.
The open-minded, creative part of our brains.
Absolutely. And actually, Vicky, that's why many people who are psychic are also very artistic or creative in some ways. Are you all fairly creative in your life, would you say?
Yeah, I love writing.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah?
Sure.
Yeah. Because when we've got that sort of creative side to us, it often comes out as a psychic gift. I mean, for me, I was a painter for years and years and years. I mean, I was quite an accomplished painter, actually. But I was dead serious about painting. You know,
you ought to show more of your paintings.
Yeah, well, they're a bit dated now. You know, they're all a bit psychedelic. But I did. I did a whole exhibition that toured the galleries and toured London, and was all around. It was all put all around the windows in Harrods and everything. You know, I mean, it was they built sets around my paintings, so I was dead serious about it. But you know, try to make a living
Yeah.
painting. You know,
Starving artist, huh?
yeah. Yeah, once children come along, it goes out the window. But again, you see, that creative side of ourselves, again, my paintings and perhaps your books and your writings and things, and because a lot of authors get this as well, we get very influenced by the things and the content that comes up from dreams, don't we? You
Yeah.
know? You can get brilliant ideas from dreams, you know? I mean, famous examples are like Frankenstein. That was after Mary Shelley had a nightmare of like a Frankenstein type creature, and also Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde came from dreams, and even Charlotte Bronte's works came from dreams, you know. So in our dreams we have a tremendous creative source there, don't we? You know, we have an ability to draw on material that we could never get to if we were to sit down and logically try to work out how to get to a good story like that. You know, you couldn't sit down, well, you could, but you could sit down and write Frankenstein purely by thinking, let's try to make a monster. What's the worst monster we can think of, and things like that. But it comes best if it just comes like out of the unconscious mind like that.
I found that with poetry. I mean, it just comes in a flash, and I can write a whole poem in a matter of a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
And it's something that I have never even thought of before. It just comes to me. And it's what some of my best poetry has been done like that. The ones that I sit down and try to make myself write, I can't do. It's just horrible.
Yeah. The most famous example, I think, is Kubla Khan, wasn't it? In Xanadu was Kubla Pleasure Dome Creed. I can't remember the story. Can't remember it now. But that came from a dream. He wrote it down from a dream, you know. And so we have tremendous powers in dreams, you know, and perhaps it connects to that bigger part of ourselves. I mean, even things like the formula for the benzene ring came from a dream. I can't remember who invented the benzene ring, but he dreamed of a dragon biting its tail, a snake biting its tail. He thought, of course, it's a circle, you know. And even the DNA ring was the DNA double spiral. I think there was a story around that with finding it in a dream as well.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
My late brother, he was working on the black box, the flight recorder. This was back in the 60s, I think. He worked for a number of firms that were trying to develop this, and they got to a certain point where they couldn't go any further, and nobody could solve this problem to make the thing work. 3:30 in the morning, my brother leapt out of bed. He dreamt it. He dreamt the solution, and he sat there at 3:30 in the morning, and he wrote it all down, and he took it into the firm, and they did the design as he'd done it, and it worked. He'd solved their problem through a dream. They paid him £30 for it. Yeah. I don't know how much they made out of the thing, but yeah, that all came to him in a dream. So
yeah, well, that's fantastic. That's just exactly the sort of thing I'm saying, isn't it? Because I mean, these things we're talking about at the moment, I wouldn't say you couldn't claim these as being psychic abilities. But they are perhaps, from what we have inside us, is genius abilities, like study, for example. When you're trying to learn something, you know, I remember at school I had to do a topic, and I hadn't even done. I had to do an extra O level, right? For some reason or other, they wanted to put me down for an extra, and I did an O level of which I had studied nothing for it, right? And I had a week beforehand in which I used sleep learning to learn it right the way through. It was quite a difficult technical type of thing, you know. It was about technical drawing type thing, you know. And I learnt it in a week, you know. And completely forgot it afterwards by putting speakers underneath my bed at night and letting it carry on as I was dropping to sleep. And you know, I mean, that's one thing. But so your unconscious has this ability to absorb. But here's one you can try, actually, thinking like that, is if you put a book under your pillow, you know, as long as it's not uncomfortable, somewhere under the pillow, if you've got two pillows, you can get away.
Wake up on the bed.
Your brain will read that book in the night. Your book. So when you come to read the book, particularly I think if it's been read by someone else, because if it's been read before, that person's vibration is on the book, right? So the book picks up the person that's read it. So the story's there. And it's a good experiment to try, because if it's a book you don't know anything about, you haven't read, you've got no idea what the content is, you know, and you put it under the pillow, and you then when you come to read the book, I mean, write your dream down, what you've had the night after you've got the book. So, but you might find that your dreams have been influenced by the content of that book, right? It's an interesting experiment to try.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah. So this is what we call.
Could you put a musical instrument under your bed and wake up and be able to play it, do you think?
Yeah, exactly.
Possibly. I think it's a possibility, actually, thinking. Because you can pick up it's this idea that things rub off on you, you know, and it's like if you mix with people that are of similar talents, like if you want to be a psychic and you mix with a lot of other psychic people, you rub off on each other, you know, you pick up off each other's energy, and you start to, and you have and I also think it's a bit like if we have a common accepted belief, as it were. And psychic things aren't about belief, they're about trying to prove reality. But it rubs off on each other, you know? And if you're musicians, it rubs off on each other, you know? If you mix with other musicians, if you can't play, you'd still start to pick it up. Even just being in their company, right? And art too, doesn't it? Particularly, I think, the intuitive skills. But I'm sure even mathematics. Like, for example, I remember playing Trivial Pursuit, for example, the great game, you know, Trivial Pursuit, the game.
Oh, yeah.
I find I'm better at Trivial Pursuit if the other people in the room know the answer and I don't. Because I read it from their brains.
Oh, that's cheating.
It is cheating. It is. But it happens. You know, and I think, bloody hell, I did not know the answer to that question whatsoever. And I just said whatever flashed into my head. And of course, what I thought, well, what I'm doing is picking up so I'd say, you know, I say, I don't know the answer to that. I've got to think about it. You look at it. So as soon as they read it and know the answer, I can't guarantee it, you know. I mean, it just happens occasionally. But look out for these sort of things if you're interested in psychic things. You see, because it's amazing.
I did read somewhere that if you have a crossword puzzle to solve in a newspaper, once several people have done it, you will find it easier to do.
Oh yeah.
You're like a collective unconscious, like a collective consciousness, if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that is very true, actually, because sometimes there's been situations, for example, where there's been like an inventions have been simultaneously discovered around the world, as if once it's been invented, it can be invented in a dozen other places at the same time. The telephone is an example. You know, the patents for the telephone. They tried to patent all the way. Nitroglycerin.
Tesla and Edison kind of did that.
Yeah, that's what I say.
And evolution as well, Darwin, and I've forgotten the name of the other chap. There was somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, Barnes Wallace.
Yeah.
Not Barnes Wallace. That's the bouncing bomb. Wallace was his surname.
Yeah.
What's his first name? Because Jane often wonders if she's related to him. He was a spiritualist, of course, and he told Darwin, I've got this theory of evolution. And as soon as Darwin realised that Wallace had it, he went out and published, because they'd both been developing the same theory at the same time, and had stumbled on the same idea. But you imagine what evolution would be like if the full one had become, if Wallace had published before Darwin, you know. And we had a spiritual element to it, you know? But I mean, a totally different way. But this is why I say it's like this is what we're connecting with in dreams, is connecting with that part of ourselves that connects, like you said, Pat, to the idea of what's out there, you know, the collective mind.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, like Carl Jung talks about the collective unconscious mind.
Wait, we've got a question
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, Jonathan.
Psychics, as soon as you think about someone, you connect to them. You connect your brain, you get a psychic link and you connect to them. It's been a problem with me that I can't ascend because I can't conserve my energy. Because every time you think of someone, you connect to them and you waste your energy. So if you're dreaming and you're connecting to everyone, you're not helping yourself at all, surely.
Um, well, I'm certainly doing any form of psychic work is the most exhausting I can think of ever doing. You know, I mean, I only do readings on a Wednesday because Tuesday I'm a complete wet flannel. I can't do anything. I'm just exhausted. No, but even if the readings have gone easy or they're not that deep, even, you know, but when it comes to even deep ones like deep mediumship and things like that, particularly if you're doing, you know, or something where you've got something where the person's extremely stressed and things like that, you know, I lost a child or something, or someone's hung themselves, you know, you're deflated afterwards. So I can't answer it. Everything does deplete energy, but the important thing is always to replenish that energy, you know. So when we do psychic work, it's very important to be able to learn how to work. And this is another topic like I touched on before, you know. It's very important that we replenish our spiritual energy, what we call the prana in ourselves. And I think sleep is one of those ways that prana is replenished. Perhaps it's nothing to do with giving the brain a rest. It's about bringing in more life force into our body, perhaps, you know, who can't answer that.
The other thing is, you know, it's your subconscious, which is the negative side, which is the dangerous side. And basically your sort of conscious mind or your high super conscious mind is at sleep in the night. You've got to be careful of that, surely, because then your subconscious just goes wild at night.
Yeah, I think I don't. The subconscious is full of many things. It's full of the dark side of ourselves, I suppose, both as a personality. It's full of our very, very ancient self, isn't it? It's full of archaic thoughts. It's full, you know, you think for this body to develop and be created, it's taken millions and millions and millions of years, all of which is in the back of our mind somewhere, all those ancient things, you know, that's right back to the times, you know, when I don't know whether mankind was around at the time of the dinosaurs, but certainly back to the times, the very first times when we were first crawling out of the sea, or right back to the first amoebas or whatever, who we were. All of that is in our unconscious mind. I mean, when a baby's in the womb, it goes through all these different stages, where it even goes through a reptilian stage, and it looks like a reptile. And that's also in our minds. So yes, I do agree up to a point, Jonathan, but I personally don't find the unconscious or the subconscious a fearful thing. It's fearful when it's filled with our emotions, but it's all me, isn't it? It's all us. It's all part of ourselves. So why can we fear anything that's us? Good and bad. We have dark and light in ourselves. We have all sorts of energies. So no, I don't see it. I don't see connecting with the unconscious as ever being a fearful thing. And in fact, the whole process of dreaming, for example, I believe is there to heal us on different levels.
No, so I don't mean evil. I mean, effectively, it's negative. So it's like the male. It's a positive you've got a positive, which is a positive aspect, which is expansive, and the negative, which is like water, which is basically it's like earth. It compresses. It's a downward, or it comes. You bring yourself in, so you're not expansive at all. So you wake up feeling despondent and morbid sometimes in the morning.
Possibly, for some people. I mean, I find that even the most negative of dreams are a relief sometimes. I feel it's like sometimes it's letting out the negative energy that you might be storing up, because, you know, when we're in our dreams, we're not somewhere else. We're still who we are. I mean, all that subconscious thinking is happening below the surface now. You know, I mean, we are floating on a sea of consciousness, really. There's only part of us that is fully awake. you know, and it feels like we're in a rational world and that. But below the surface, there's this huge part of ourselves, the subconscious mind. Like all the time, for example, you know, in our unconscious, things are happening. It's part of our brain is telling us to make the heart beat all the time. Part of the brain is telling the lungs to breathe all the time. All these automatic systems are functioning all the time without us having to take any rational control of it. But they're all there and they're all being controlled by the brain. So it's a vast field in there. And I think to tap it and to go into it is not a negative thing. I think it's a fantastic resource. I fear nothing in life, I say. The Buddha used to say, I think it was, fear only ignorance. And I think that if you've got inner fears about connecting with the subconscious or the unconscious mind, we should think to ourselves, well, look, one candle can light the whole room, you know. When we shine light on these things, they don't have control over us. And it's far worse, surely, to live in what you would call an unconscious state, you know, because a lot of people live in this world unconsciously. They live irrationally. They're not awake. They're zombies in a way. I mean, we treat them as ordinary people. We see them as ordinary people, but are they self-aware? Are they awake? They're kind of moving from one behavioral thing to another. That's unconsciousness. Like an animal is also unconscious in most respects. And I think it's our duty as humans to wake up, really. And part of the dreaming process and the sleep process is about learning to wake up. I mean, would you agree with that, guys? I mean, do you think that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the brain regenerates itself while we sleep. All of those cells in our bodies regenerate while we sleep. So it only makes sense the psychic part of our brains would get stronger also, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you're absolutely right there, because the body replenishes and the cellular system regrows again, and it's definitely good for health, sleep and rest. But so too does the spirit. So does the pranic energy. So does our spirit grow, you know. And although we need complete rest, I think we can also use dreams we can use dreams certainly as a very good tool sometimes to help trigger our psychic abilities. And the first thing we have to do really as a step to doing this is to, and I don't do it often now, but I've had periods in my life where I've done it quite a lot, where I write down the dreams. You know, nowadays I tend to write down the very important ones, you know, like if I've had a dream that is absolutely life-changing. I dream, for example, I've had lots of dreams of Sathya Sai Baba, who can give you instructions in dreams, but that's a different issue. But if we can write our dreams down, it can be quite, particularly if one's interested in developing one's psychic skills, it's a good way to start to get connected with that other part of ourself, you know. And if we write them down and we keep them, the very act of putting a dream journal of some sort, a book that we dedicated to being just about dreams, the act of putting that notebook or whatever and a pen next to our bedside table, on our bedside table, will make us have a dream, because it will tell the unconscious mind, tonight you're going to have a dream, tonight you're going to remember a dream, and when you wake up, one of the first thoughts will be, I've had a dream, have I? You know, and suddenly that first trigger thought will suggest to you, yes, I have, because you'll start to remember it. And if you write down what comes to you, and it takes a while if a person has struggles with lots of getting dreams, but if you just write down what you're feeling in the morning, you know, if you can't remember a dream, just write what you're feeling, you know, or what the first thought that comes into your mind, breakfast, okay, or whatever, you know. Write down the first thoughts that come into your mind. You'll find that because you started the action of writing, something's likely to come from what you remember. You know, think about your feelings. A good way into your dreams is through your feelings, because they're very feeling based, aren't they? They're very emotional based. They're very the first level of dreams is like this. You know.
Could you use a voice recorder?
No, I don't think it's as good actually, Pat. You could. I mean, if you try it. But yeah, you could, I suppose. But I actually find the act of writing, actually, for me, because dreams are image based as well. I sometimes draw a little picture, and if I write a dream down, sometimes I might just, because it's so hard, because the time in a dream doesn't kind of follow a straight line a lot of the time. You know, you might jump from one scene to another, and one personality and character comes into the dream, and you'll be in one type of dream, and then you're in a completely different dream. You find there's 2 or 3 dreams often are all interconnected, aren't they? So I kind of find writing it down is quite a good way, because I'll do it like a mind map. You know, when you draw a circle and you write a bit in it, and then you might draw another line off there and say, oh, so I dreamed about my granddad's house, Oh, and my nan was there. Then my nan was, oh, then I dreamed about being in the garden, and then there was a crocodile in the garden. Oh, that crocodile was you know, and so crazy. You know, lock me up. I need more medication. You know.
First thing in the morning, my dogs are jumping around and wanting their breakfast, and they start barking, and you know, I couldn't sort of sit there writing and
but then do it your way, then, Pat. That's fine. I mean, that's whatever way we want.
Yeah, because I've got to stop them barking because the neighbours will complain.
Yeah, I try it. I've not tried writing it down. I'm recording it, so it could be quite good. And then you can play it back again and listen to it later in the day too.
It might be the same for people who've got, say, a little baby, or young children or something like that.
Yeah.
They wouldn't sit there writing, you know, when they've got a baby crying or children saying, mum, you know.
Yeah. Might make an interesting YouTube video, channel, wouldn't it? Just tell your dreams every morning. Yeah?
Series.
Oh, that's an idea.
Seriously, that's quite a good idea. Every morning you talk about your dreams.
We're going to write a pilot for that.
Yeah. No matter how embarrassing, you know, you make a pledge to your viewers that you will tell your dream no matter how awful or rude or whatever it is.
And I was naked
your
in front
unconscious
of the
mind as well.
classroom.
Right.
Yeah, good. Snapchat, good one for that. But so when we write a diary, okay, so that's kind of our way in, because one of the things I got quite deeply interested in dreams. I started studying. I thought I might learn. I thought at one point you know, you don't know what you want to do in life. I thought one point in life I'd like to be a Jungian psychologist, you know. So I started reading the collective works of Carl Jung, you know. So that's library of bloody books it was.
Mm-hmm.
But I got so deeply involved in dreams, I started writing them down for about 2 years, of every day writing the dreams down. And I eventually threw the books away because I thought I'd become a bit obsessive with this. I thought, no, I can't do this. This is too much. I wish I hadn't been such an idiot. I mean, I wish I'd kept them, actually, because when I went back through them, because and what I've had left is some of the dream stuff I've written down. When you look back years later, you know, I look at it and I think, blimey, you know, it's predicted in there things that would happen to me in life and things that have happened in the world that were at the time made absolutely no sense whatsoever. And yet when you look back at it, you think, my God, that dream was talking about this or that. And then you'll also get recurring dreams that pick up as if they're following a series, you know, like you'll get a dream and then 10 years later, you'll have the same dream, but in a slightly different form. So it's always talking about things that are very deeply connected in ourselves. And one of the other things I've noticed too is that dreams seem to take no sense of time or how old you are or anything like that, you know. Like I'll have a dream, like you probably have the same thing, you know, but you dream about your childhood. I dreamed about when I was 5 years old, and it's just like it was now, you know. It's like I wake up thinking, where's granddad, or where's my mum, or whatever, you know. And I think, God, that's how long ago is that, you know? And it's just like no time has passed whatsoever, you know. So I think this is also quite important in learning about ourselves too, that, you know, what we're doing in this life is such a tiny bit of the iceberg, isn't it, really? I mean, there's all this connection with memories of people that you knew from school, or chance acquaintances that you met in a shop 10 years ago and things like that, you know. And it's all there. And we have such a powerful mechanism here that, you know, even if we just use it for its psychological purposes, I'm sure also the clairvoyance comes very much from that, you know, you're not conscious of it when you're doing clairvoyance from people, but it's coming, I think, from that intuition, isn't it? From that dark side of ourselves in some ways, that unknown part of ourselves. Because sometimes information comes to you and you don't know why the hell it's come from. It's like a dream. You know, you think, how I couldn't make that up? You know, weirdest stuff sometimes. But it's the same when you're connecting, because I feel it's a matter of listening to yourself, listening to those inner thoughts and seeing what is thrown up in the screen of your consciousness. And we can actually do things about it too. For example, you know, I said about putting a book under your pillow or something like that and seeing how that goes. These are just experiments. But also you could write yourself a question that you would like to know the answer to, right? And put it on a piece of paper and put that under your pillow, right? Now, the act of doing that is what we call dream incubation. We are encouraging ourselves to have a dream about a particular issue. It could be something that worries you, perhaps, and a dream might give you a symbolic answer to the question you've asked. It could be something that could have something that you couldn't possibly know about. What is tomorrow's lottery numbers? Yeah. But it might be possible. I've not tried that one. But you could ask a question of yourself that involves some form of clairvoyance and see if the brain throws something back to you, you know. Who knows what you could come up with, you know. These are things you can experiment and try, you know, and you don't even need to have a circle or a group to do this. These are ways to get in touch with your psychic self, I suppose, isn't it? You know? And when you start writing dreams down too, and if you get other people that start getting interested in dreams, I mean, we did try this in the circle I used to have, in which I would ask the members of the circle all to meet at a particular place, whether we were meeting there in the astral travel or we were meeting there in symbolically. I suggested that we would have what we call a mutual dream, where you all have the same dream in the same place, and that we would take a point. And I think we chose Farley Mount near Southampton, which is a pyramid that's on top of a mountainside, which is a monument. It's a folly, right? So I said we will all meet there through the week until next time we meet. And if you can, try to meet there in your dream. Try to meet there. And I went there and I put something there, right? An old teddy bear we put there, actually a pink teddy bear, to see if anybody would come up with seeing the pink teddy bear there. And also when we started writing them down, to find out if the conversations we had in our dreams made sense to each other, you know. And some people did get this fluffy toy thing that they thought was at the place. Wow. You know, didn't say teddy bear itself, but they said fluffy toy, one of them said. And it's amazing that whether we were meeting there like on the astral travel, we're traveling outside of our bodies, or whether we're using a mutual symbol to connect on another level, whether it meant leaving the body or not, we just connected, you know. Because I don't think astral traveling is necessarily physical traveling as we think it is. I think it's like being in two places at once. But it's fascinating what we can do with that. This is called mutual dreaming, you know. And the things you could maybe set up with, you've got a friend or something that's into doing these type of things, and you could sort of say, look, can I try an experiment with you? Let's see if we can meet somewhere, and write down whatever you get, and let's see if anything makes sense, and if there's any similarities to our dreams, because you might find that you might not even meet at that place, but you might both have the same dream, you know. Exactly.
Yeah, I tried this. Yeah, I tried this when I was younger with a friend, but we didn't manage to meet or you know, have the same dreams at all. We did it for several weeks.
Quite good fun.
Yeah, but there you are.
I think all of these things are really a case of you know, none of these experiments are the de facto way to become psychic by any means, but they're just interesting, useful experiments to try. I mean, to develop psychic abilities, really, you have to sit in a circle, a proper physical circle. I mean, we can do so much online and our energies will connect. But I want to set up you know, the whole objective of getting this new studio thing we're doing is so that we can have a circle that we can film at a place that is permanently set up just for that. And that will build the energy in the room, you know, because I mean, when I sat to develop my mediumship, we did it in pretty much a broom closet actually, because the teacher only had a tiny room that he could use, but he could make that a dedicated room for the mediumship, and we'd sit there pretty much in pitch black most of the time actually. But the energy in that little room was, I mean, it's hard to explain it until you actually sit in it. You know, it is very hard to explain, and the energy built so high that it was almost impossible not to be psychic. You know, I mean, it was just, the energy would just flow through you. You know, and I've had other circles run where we've had, you know, I had to hire somewhere, which is never the same because you always have to build the energy up again each time. But even then, we had incredible things happening. And we used to move the energy round the room, you know, and move it in a circle round ourselves, and then clockwise, move the energy clockwise and move the energy counterclockwise. And you could feel it moving. And even we were getting lights appearing in the room as we were doing this, you know.
Like all you're doing is creating a circle then.
Sorry?
Energy, you're creating a circle, casting a circle.
Yeah, it's a circle.
Yeah, because I've done that when I go to sleep. This is what I'm saying. I do worry about this sometimes. When I first had Kundalini, I would cast a circle in my sleep, and then in the morning I'd wake up with a whole bunch of angels around me to protect me, and I hadn't called them. They would actually physically manifest to protect me.
That's really interesting, Jonathan. I mean, I obviously you've had some pretty powerful psychic experiences in your life, or spiritual experiences as well, isn't it? With the Kundalini, when it awakens. I mean, that's a whole topic, and it does. The Kundalini does naturally awaken when you start to move onto the path of spiritual work, anyway. And I think for me, it didn't really open like a bolt out of the blue, like some people describe it. It opened gradually, and I find, particularly with the third eye center, it opens naturally when I go into that inner state. I mean, I see the lights, I see the energy. I'm completely aware of. Well, there's a lot to describe with that, and also the chakra on the top of the head opens up. And when I'm doing mediumship, this is where it comes from, not from the third eye. It comes from here. I feel it from here.
I mean,
yeah, so
it's about the negative energy as well. This is why, as I said, you know, you've got 16 dimensions within your sphere. Within you've got an auric body basically, and inside that you've got I'd call an arc, because it's a light buoy or light pod. Inside that, basically, when you raise Kundalini, you've got to be very careful because you start opening portals. And I mean, I had people, I had a Japanese warrior from a different time zone come through in spirit.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, when we open when we open the spirit body, as it were, you say different numbers people say, but they talk in the East, they talk about the koshas. That is like the layers of an onion that is our existence, you know. And the main one, this bit, the physical body being the food body, the mana kosha, you know, it's made out of food. And then we have the prana kosha, which is like our energy body, which is another sheet of ourselves. And then we have the intuitive body. We've got the mind, the mind is one of the body sheets. And then we also have the intuitive body. And then further back into that, we have the soul body, as it were, is a way you could describe it, you know. And our existence is in the depth of all that. Our existence is beyond all those, because beyond the soul body is the bliss body, and further into the very center of the circle is the infinite, the infinite self. So all these things are there, and they all open up more and more as we open up our chakras and things like that. And my attitude to these things is we do this gently and gradually and let it happen on its own way, because the physical body, this body we have is designed for spiritual awakening. It's the different to an animal body. It has within it a nervous system and a spiritual system that is capable of superhuman things. I think, you know, that we don't even begin to understand in this life. And sometimes if it opens perhaps a bit erratically, you can go off on all sorts of difficult paths because the energy, the spinal column's not been cleansed. So the energy goes to wherever it goes, you know. And that's why when we do these things, we do it gradually and gently, and we never force things. We let
I have people who work remotely on me. That's why.
Sorry?
I have people who work remotely on me.
Yes.
Both
Yeah.
on the physical plane and then from the White Brotherhood. I don't know if you were the elders, yeah?
Okay, so you're quite interested in things then, such as Madame Blavatsky's teachings from from her teachings for the White Brotherhood and all that type of thing.
I don't know about that. It was just that this is what comes through to me.
Yeah.
When you connect through it, the knowledge just comes.
Yeah. Well, all our, you see, we can read a million books about how to become a psychic and nothing will happen. You'll just be the same as you ever were. It has to ultimately come through direct personal experience, you know, and that comes through, well, that comes also through a lot of discipline, you know, like I've been talking a lot about how we can use dreams because they're a good, easy route in. But in our lives, I feel if we want to really develop spiritually, and if we want to really also develop psychically, we have to have a lot of spiritual discipline. And that will come a lot through things like meditation, you know, because meditation is not just to sit back and be all happy and blissful, although it is. It also does require quite a lot of inner concentration and work. And those techniques and those things will eventually give us, we will naturally develop psychic abilities if we go on the path searching for spiritual abilities, spiritual awakening. Because Patanjali, for example, always said that the things that he discouraged anything to do with psychic awakening, because he said, don't follow that path because it's traps all the time. It can be traps. It can take you away from true liberation, because we have to be focused on our own moksha, our own liberation from bondage to the small I, as it were. We have to ultimately merge with the infinite. And they can be a little bit like the ring in Lord of the Rings. It can become something that psychic power can become something that becomes a bit too precious to you, you know. So, and a lot of mythology has talked about all those type of things as well. So my attitude is that, you know, these things are wonderful gifts and can be used to help people, but we mustn't become too, we must put ahead of all that always our search for awakening, our search for spirituality, our search for higher consciousness, because that's what matters the most in the world, you know. But I think, like I say, when coming back to the main topic here, when we talk about dreams and things like that, dreams give us an insight into different types of consciousness, doesn't it, really? When we sleep, when we dream, we're in a very different state of consciousness to our normal daily consciousness. And I think it's a very helpful thing for us to learn that there are different ways of thinking, different ways of being, because when you dream, you're thinking in a very, very different way to you do in your daily life, aren't you, really? So yeah, so that's some thoughts on dreams, really. I mean, I don't know if anybody's got any other comments you'd like to add, some thoughts about this. If you've been thinking what we've been talking about.
Well, I had one and I lost it while you were talking. I
Thank
have
you.
a tendency to do that lately.
Yeah, so I think what we can take from this is that there's, okay, so we talked, and also the other thing I was going to talk about too is lucid.
No, thank you. Thank you very much, Greg.
Sorry? I didn't see who said that. Okay. Another thought is lucid dreaming. So I was going to also, because I talked about dream incubation, you know, the idea that we can encourage a dream, talked about some of the ideas about some of those other techniques about meeting people in mutual dreams. But there's also this other idea called lucid dreaming. I don't know if any of you have experienced this. You probably have experienced it at least sometime.
I lucid dream.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
have.
Yeah, you get that a lot, Isabella, do you?
Yeah, or at least
acute awareness of being in the dream. Like if I hear things, because I'm a fairly light sleeper.
Mm-hmm.
So if something's going on outside while I'm asleep, the people that I'm speaking to in the dream are going to be like, what's going on up there? And I'll have to tell them like, oh, I think someone's in the kitchen and that's why they're making noise. And then I'll be like, I'll go and check. And then I wake up for a minute and then I go back to sleep and I just resume.
Yeah. And you can carry on where you left off in the dream.
Yeah, sometimes. Or sometimes I'll go back. Yeah.
Sorry, Vicky?
I've done that not knowing I was doing it. I had never heard of lucid dreaming, and I had been doing it for years since I was a teenager and didn't realize it.
Yeah, this is often the case, actually. I mean, it comes spontaneously again. That's what I say. There's techniques to encourage a lucid dream, awakening in a dream, but sometimes we kind of get there naturally. And the dreams become sort of super dreams, really. You know, they become just like being in reality. I'm as you know, I'm very interested in Eastern stuff and the rest of it. And when I first went to see the Indian guru Satya Sai Baba, you know, I went to see him in India, and it was an amazing man, you know. And he was. I've spoken to friends who have seen him do materializations and produce incredible stuff, you know. And I saw him materializing what we call vibhuti ash right in front of my eyes, about there, you know. I saw him do it. I thought, well, I'm seeing something that's beyond my comprehension, you know. And sometimes he says that he will, when you dream of him, you can't dream of him unless he wills it, right? And that's what I've understood as being the case, because sometimes I've had dreams of him and it's been absolutely real, you know. And the things he said, it's just like talking to someone in the room. This is like these super lucid dreams. And maybe that's what part of what these lucid dreams are, to connect us with something that is another level of reality, you know. So we get these moments when we have these incredible lucid dreams. But there's also another thing that I think is a very, very useful state that can help us to develop our psychic awareness. And that is the states, and some of you might get this, usually it happens just as you're falling asleep, but sometimes just as you're waking up, which is hypnagogic dreaming, dreams that happen as you're falling asleep, and then hypnopopic dreaming, if I pronounced it right, as you're waking up, which is like when I close my eyes at night, I will see the room, even though my eyes are closed very often. And sometimes if I'm looking to the wall on the other side, I will see on that wall, I see it with my eyes closed, but that wall would turn into a sculpture, like this carvings on the side of the Sumerian pictures that I've seen in the British Museum. And then it moves, and I'm just laying there watching it, and it turns into the most incredible scenery and images. So what I'm getting is a form of hypnagogic dreaming, in which a stream of imagery is opening up. But in all kind of a funny way, I've really projected it into the room as well. It's projected from me, it's objectified. But before, it used to happen as just brilliant colors turning into incredible patterns, turning into weird faces and scenes, and some of it terrifying and some of it beautiful, but none of it really emotionally upsetting me or making me ecstatic. It was just there. And sometimes that sort of whole flow of imagery that comes on the screen of our consciousness, I think sometimes in that I've spotted stuff that appears to be possible things that could be showing the future of the world, or could be showing my future. So there's the kind, and other people's thoughts I see in it that aren't my own, you know. It might be that we've connected into something that is like the universal mind, you know. It's not my, it might not even be my thoughts, I think, because there's this sense of being separate from it, you know. So that's something that I kind of worked with a lot in my life, and quite a lot of people, particularly creative people, have described this idea of this amazing flow of imagery that happens as you drop to sleep. It's quite rare with most people, but when you get it, you'll know you've had it. Have any of you experienced that?
Yeah,
I have.
I see faces. I see lots of different faces coming in, all sorts of things.
Yeah. and all weird, isn't it? Like
I
looking.
did that when I was about
Yeah, yeah.
5. I remember vividly the pictures that were on the wall, and they started acting out different things. And that started from a really early age. There was a picture of a horse, there was a picture of a clown, and it was wild. I still remember it to this day.
In fact, I had exactly the same thing because I used to get it as a child, and my mum,
Uh-huh.
because we had quite a patternly sort of wallpaper. They just decorated my bedroom, and they had to take the whole lot down again because I wouldn't sleep in there because I was seeing so much on the wall. Dad
Oh,
was
yeah.
devastated.
That was in my brother's room that happened. So I didn't sleep in there ever again.
So we do see things in patterns and things like that, particularly as kids. But what I'm talking about is with your eyes closed. You know, if my eyes are completely closed, I'm not actually looking at anything, and the wall we've got is plain. There's nothing in it to make patterns. And so it's just that I've noticed it feels as if I can see the room, and the room itself starts to turn into this incredible flow of imagery. I haven't talked about this. Actually, Jane doesn't even know I say this happens. But this is happening to me as I'm dropping to sleep. But all through my life, I've always found that there's this incredible flow of imagery, and you can also stimulate it a little bit. Actually, you can encourage it. And the way I've found it is, and you can do it in meditation too. I will sit in a meditation, for example, and I look at the screen of my consciousness. So when your eyes are closed, I'm looking from here. And if an image or anything comes, even a little dot comes, that's a spot of light or something, and if my mind throws something up, I will put my whole attention onto that with absolute full focus of nothing else except to look at that thing until it reveals itself, you know. And I might see something, say I see a flower. Okay, I see a flower, but then I think I look at it and I see, now I want to see it from underneath. So I see the flower from underneath. I want to see it right close up. I want to see it from a distance. I want to see its color. I want to see its texture. I want to smell it, you know. So I see it more and more and more, and it's like it was already there, but I'm like making more of it reveal itself to me, right? So, and then these can be extremely complex things that you can see in all dimensions, all from inside, from outside, the texture. It's like you can see it in ways that you can't even see it with your normal perceptions, you know. It's like this idea of the colors that we don't know the names of. You know, we start to see it in almost a psychedelic type of way. We start to hear it as well as see it. You know, like mixing the senses with it. You can do. I feel. So I think again, this can happen through dreams, but it can also happen through meditation. And when that happens, it's like, again, we mustn't get too attached to it because we can get lost in imagery and we can just go off in cloud cuckoo land all the time. But because we just got to get to the purity of clear thought without thought, ultimately, you know, without mind. But when these things happen, I feel these are very powerful inner processes that I think is more than our own mind we're seeing there. I think we're seeing, and this is sort of lock you up and throw away the key job. This is, but I think what we're seeing is something where we connect with what I would call the universal mind. You know, I think, am I seeing also the thoughts of other people? Am I seeing also the thoughts of the spirit world? And of course, normally you can't prove this, but I can prove it through mediumship because, you know, when you can see a person and you can describe that person and give their name and it just happens to correspond exactly with somebody that the other person knows from this, who's in the spirit world, then we can actually prove these things. So my quest for mediumship was often to prove that the things that I was seeing were real and not just figments of my imagination.
You're connecting to the Akasha to do that, because basically mind is air, which is neutral, but then you've got to go above that to fire, which is electric. Then from there you get to the tetrapolar thing of Akasha, and that's why you're getting all this image. You're going into the Akasha to get that information, because the microcosm is below that. The macrocosm is the Akasha.
Yeah. So you're talking about Kabbalah here again.
It's the same in other systems. Because I'm reading Barden at the moment, which is, you know, Franz Barden, and
Yeah.
mysticism. Basically, yeah, it's very similar. And
Yeah.
he-
Again, in the Eastern teachings talk about that all things, including mind, are made up of 5 elements. You know, that we have the earth quality, the water quality, the air. Have I got them all? And
Fire.
Higher,
ether. Yeah, air and ether. You know, so all of those things constitute all of existence, including ourselves. We're all made up of this, and we're also made up of the 3 gunas, which is like the 3 qualities of tamasic, rajasic, and sattvic. So there's the heavier energy, the vital, how can I say, dynamic energy, and there's the peaceful energy. You know, so all of those things, all those qualities are always coming into everything that happens in every part of our spiritual and life experiences. Anyway, I think we'll have to leave it soon, but hopefully there's some interesting thoughts there,
Definitely.
and some brilliant contributions from you all there too, I think, today as well. Some very interesting thoughts.
I just had a question.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Yeah.
it possible that I don't know what it was called, the thing that you that it heightens when your body is at its lowest as like a way of recovery? Because I'll get that whenever I'm sick. Like a couple weeks ago, I was fairly ill, and I was just, sleeping it off. And as I was falling, and this always happens if I have a high fever, if I have just a cold, just something that where my body really needs to recover. And I get very Dali-esque visions that are very weird, and they kind of make me dizzy. And then I just fall into a sleep where I'll look at something and I'll see maybe 1,000 images of just people doing things that I don't know these people. And then I'll see like clocks in my like room or something just melting a little bit. And or some of them's going to speed up and things. And it always happens when I'm sick. So I wondered if there was any correlation.
I don't think entirely, but I think when you're sick, your brain often open up. I mean, I find when I can always tell if I'm about to get ill, because I will notice for a short period of time my perceptions are highly heightened. Not my sleeping perception, my normal perceptions. I start to see the structure, the form of things with great clarity. I start to see the color with great clarity. And I know I'm on the edge of being ill. And I think it's a bit like this idea that Aldous Huxley said about that we have in our brain a reducing valve. You know, there's that we only so much information is able to get through. You know, it can't get through into our consciousness. But sometimes that can widen, and this whole vast amount of information can come in. And sometimes something that might be affecting the brain or ourselves can make it happen. Like an illness can make it happen. You know, a drug can make it happen. A exhausted experience it's pure physical exhaustion can make it happen. I mean, I've got friends that, for example, that have been boxers, and they talk about that when they're in the ring, you know, and they get to the point where it's getting to that point where it's nearly killing each other, you know, and they think they're going to go over. They get this sudden second wind of energy, and it's like the brain releases something that gives them almost a superhuman power, you know, and they suddenly find they can win, you know. And they seek that, and people seek it in things like extreme exercise or bodybuilding and things like that.
I didn't know I was dancing before.
Yeah, absolutely, dancing or any form of extreme experience, such as bungee jumping or things like that. So, so coming back to your question, Isabella, it's more like I think yes, it probably will happen when you're feeling ill, but it will also equally happen when you're feeling extremely energetic as well. Because for me, I found it happen sometimes when I'm at the very best. But it's particularly, I do think you're right, because when I think about it, oftentimes when I'm extremely tired, I will let myself go into that state, and it is tremendously restorative. So I think I think you've got something there. I think sometimes it happens a lot when the body or the mind and the spirit needs to regenerate. Yeah.
I have a question about hypnosis. Isabella reminded me of that. During hypnosis, they found that I go under extremely easy. And is that a sort of psychic experience as well with hypnosis?
Well, yes. Well, hypnosis is. I think again, it's connecting us with the part of ourselves that lies below the rationality, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
We
The
have this
subconscious.
rationality that keeps us in this world all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly, I've seen psychic things happen to people who are hypnotized. For example, I went along to a hypnotic regression session, and this is years and years and years ago. And the girl I was with was hypnotized, and I knew quite a lot about her. And I knew she couldn't speak French, and she didn't just speak French when she was hypnotized, but she spoke Old French and was speaking Old French, because we had there a historian who also knew Old French for some reason. He'd studied not just French, but Old French. So she was speaking like we speak Old English, there's Old French. And I knew that she couldn't speak that, and was talking things about past lives and things that made, it just seemed and was a completely different personality. And as far as I know, she didn't have any personality issues, or anything like that, multiple personality problems or anything. This was something that seemed to be something that the hypnosis had triggered and brought out the person into a deep in their unconscious mind. Yeah, and those regressions, I've seen lots of people in that regression session. It was absolutely fascinating. I don't remember the name of the man we went to, but he was apparently very famous as a regression therapist. But that was in the early days when I was first searching, and you stumble upon quite a few things.
Yeah.
So okay, so I'm going to finish soon, but I was going to suggest, I said at the beginning, would anybody like to suggest some ideas that you'd like me to pick up on for future ones, maybe next week or even the others as well? Because I often think, what should I teach them next, or what should I use as a subject? I've come up with good ideas, I think, sometimes, but have you got any thoughts about what you'd personally like to do?
There is something that you haven't covered either in the Friday evening ones or the Monday Zoom meetings. My husband used to do a lot of building work for Chinese people, and if they wanted a new house built, they couldn't build it until they brought the feng shui man in to have a look and make sure that it was in an auspicious place. And he couldn't really do anything until the feng shui man had been in and improved it. So how about discussing something like that?
My knowledge of feng shui is reasonable, but not. I wouldn't say I was an absolute expert, but I could talk about some of it. Definitely, that's an interesting idea. I mean, I've spent a lot of time working with Yi Ching through my life, and that's connected a lot with the feng shui. So we can maybe look at that, and maybe some of the Chinese ideas, Taoism perhaps as well.
I would like that.
Yeah. Any other thoughts? No, you're all fine. Okay, well, maybe we'll look at something like that next week then. Yeah. I'll have to brush up on the feng shui.
You've got homework.
You'll accept that I've got a limited knowledge of feng shui, but I have enough to know the basics. But Pat, you know a fair bit about feng shui too. You could share with us.
Not really. I don't know a lot about it, but a little bit. I have read a bit.
I mean, certainly Taoism is a very interesting concept, actually.
That's a good one.
And maybe I could talk about that and include a bit of fun, because I have quite a good knowledge of Taoism, and I'm very inspired by that. And again, it ties in. Taoism is also very interesting because it ties in also with some of the ideas that Jonathan was talking about there. With the Kundalini, they have their own methods as well, which is very similar. And also some of the ideas of the Chinese concept of dreams and things like that. So maybe we could let's look at that next time.
Great idea.
Yeah, okay. That's the topic for next week. That's going to be a bit of head scratching.
He told my husband he had a lucky face because he had a round face. They said he had a lucky face.
Oh, right, yeah.
The man, the builder that he was a partner with, he said, "Oh, am I lucky too?" And I said, "Oh no, you've got horse face. You're not lucky."
Yeah.
But yeah, they said he had a lucky face.
They put a lot of stead on that in China. I know.
Very much believe in it, you know.
Yeah.
Craig, can I add something as well, please?
Yeah.
What about something to do with sort of your own energy aura cleansing, your own keeping your own energy? Because you, as you said earlier, it is ever so tiring. And I find even crystal healing when I'm doing that really tiring too. So sort of any thoughts that you have on protecting your own energy?
That's a really good idea,
safe,
Laura. Yeah. That's a
really
really good idea. And actually,
there's so much negativity out there, Craig, at the moment, and any empaths out there as well are struggling.
yeah,
I am, yes.
working personally with energy, I agree with you entirely. And frankly, I've been exhausted too. A lot of people I've been talking to have been saying that they just feel so worn out.
Yeah, me
and
too.
I think the lockdown does tire us out psychologically. But I think collectively, you know, like we were talking about, maybe we connect to the collective mind with these things, like we were talking about hypnagogic dreaming, connecting with that. I mean, all our energies are connected together. I think the world's exhausted, you know?
There's so much unrest, and you can feel it, can't you? And it's just...
Yeah. Even if you don't go out, you know, there's a fear.
No.
Yeah.
It's there.
Psychics have been dealt a lot, they're carrying a lot more of the burden, you know that. It's a sort of like the precursor to the inner war. There's going to be an inner war around about 2025, 2026.
I've heard of that.
I mean, there's quite a lot of mediums aware of this, and the people at AMU have told me all about this. That's why when previously you made a comment, Craig, about security and protection is very, very vital.
Yes.
And people need to work together on this, I think, because
I wrote a whole book about psychic protection, you know, and
you want to protect others as well around.
Yeah, and how we can protect healing energy to each other too, because not only can we protect one of the best ways to protect ourselves is to give out as well sometimes, you know, to shine.
You mentioned about the circle and how you can feel the energy within the circle, and I agree. It's amazing, that feeling, and I've never experienced anything like it. And I can't actually, you know, even when you're trying to protect yourself, or you're trying to protect your home or your family or anything like that, you can't seem to get that level of energy going in the same way as you can if you're in a circle. I'm not saying that you even should. I'm just wondering if there's, you know, any tricks that you could maybe share with us, or thoughts.
Actually, that seems to be.
Please.
I mean, would you prefer that topic first before the Taoist one, guys? I don't know.
I don't mind. That's all interesting.
It might be good for all of us, because I think everyone here has got psychic abilities, or they wouldn't be here.
Yeah,
and that might be a good idea.
Yeah. I think that might not be a bad idea, Pat, if you don't mind. I think I'd do that one first. Because that might be quite. We've got two then, haven't we? We've got two interesting topics.
Yeah.
And energy, how we can develop and cleanse our energy, and also energy when we're using it to cleanse ourselves afterwards. And spiritual work, you know, that is important.
Helping others.
Yes.
Yeah. That's all.
I'm a massage therapist, so I've learned a lot of some tricks, but I know I'm an empath also. So when I walk into even a grocery store, and the grocery store has so many people in it, and they're all trying to get the same things, and I just feel bombarded with all the energy, and you're not prepared for it.
No. And even not, I mean, psychically open people, empathic people, you know, they're more sensitive to it. But I think everybody is too, even the ordinary people at the moment. So let's do that.
Especially at the moment.
We'll make that one next week about energy.
It's like sensory overload, isn't it?
Sorry?
It's a bit like sensory overload that you were talking about earlier, Craig, as in that valve.
Yeah.
It just seems to be there's quite a lot going on at the moment.
There is. Yeah, I think it's really important. Yeah, I think I can definitely think of a lot of good stuff we could talk about there, and some of the stuff I learned in India as well. You know, about yagnas, things like that, and how we can protect and how we can project our energy. Okay, well, I'm going to finish it there. This will be put up on the Patron site. They do always go out on YouTube, so I put that. Ultimately, it will also, your faces will all be on YouTube as well at some point. But I certainly always sort of save these, upload them to YouTube, and then everybody on the Patron site can see it. So just to say to everybody on the Patron site, come along on these evenings if you're enjoying it, because we can get up quite a few people on this. But it's nice, this little group we got already going, isn't it? Good energy. Okay. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. See you next time then. All right. Bye for now. Bye.
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 Ah.